Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the hidden legal world behind everyday favors. The simple stuff, like lending a book or asking a friend for a hand. It turns out that even a simple handshake deal is packed with rules you probably never even knew existed.
So, let me ask you this. Have you ever asked a friend to dog sit for the weekend or, frantically borrowed a calculator from a classmate right before a huge exam? Of course you have, right? We all have. And it just feels like a simple favor, a little moment of trust.
Well, congratulations, because in the eyes of the law, you just entered into a formal, binding agreement. I'm not kidding. These super common exchanges are actually governed by a whole specific area of the law. And that legal agreement has a name. It's called a bailment. It's a fancy word, but the idea is simple. It's basically any situation where you temporarily give your property to someone else for a particular reason with the full expectation you're going to get it back. Now, in every one of these deals, there are two main players. The person who hands over the item is the bailor, and the person who takes it is the bailee. Just think of it as the giver and the recipient. Easy enough? Okay, but here's where it gets really, really interesting. The law doesn't just lump all these agreements together, no way. It draws these really important lines based on one single question. Who is actually benefiting from this whole arrangement? So you can really break it down into three main buckets. First, what if the deal only helps the person giving the item? Like when you ask your friend to watch your dog for free. That's for the benefit of you, the bailor. What if it only helps the person getting it? Like when you borrow that calculator. Well, that benefits the bailee. And of course, sometimes both people get something out of it. Like when you rent a safety deposit box from a bank. That's a mutual benefit deal. And look, this isn't just some dusty legal theory. It has huge consequences. There was this case way back in 1910 where one business partner gave another a bunch of money to invest. Because they both stood to make a profit, the court said, this is a mutual benefit relationship. And that meant the guy holding the money had a super strict legal duty to account for every last penny. You couldn't just say, whoops, the money's gone. You had to prove it. All right, now we're getting to what is maybe the most crucial distinction in this entire topic. It all comes down to what you're supposed to give back. I like to think of it as the library book versus cup of sugar rule. Are you returning the exact same item, or is an equivalent good enough? So here are the two legal terms you need to know. That library book situation, that's called comodatum. It's a loan for use. You don't own the book, you can't write in it, and you have to return that exact same copy. But borrowing a cup of sugar or money or rice, that's a mutuum, a simple loan. And here's the mind-blowing part. In a mutuum, ownership actually transfers to you. Your only job is to return an equal amount of the same quality, not the very same dollar bills or grains of sugar. Okay, wait a minute. That idea, that ownership of money, actually transfers to you when you borrow it, that raises a huge question. If you borrow $100 from a friend and you just can't pay it back, have you committed a crime, like theft? I mean, the money is gone, right? And the law comes back with a crystal clear, resounding no. A major court case settled this. Here's why. Since the ownership of that money legally transferred to you, you can't be guilty of stealing something that you technically own. It's a big deal. Failing to repay a simple loan, that's a civil problem. It's a debt. It is not a criminal act. All right, so let's check out a couple of real-world court cases to see how all these principles actually get applied, especially when things go wrong and people stop being friendly. Let's talk about safety deposit boxes. A bank once tried to argue that renting a box is just like renting an apartment, a simple lease, and that they weren't responsible for what was inside. But the court said, not so fast, because the bank holds its own special guard key, and you literally can't open your box without them. The court decided the bank keeps partial control. That makes it a bailment, and it means the bank is on the hook for protecting your stuff. So what about those really informal situations? Like you let a friend crash in your spare room for a while, but there's no lease, no deadline, nothing in writing. The law has a special name for that too. It's called a precarium. It's basically an agreement based on your tolerance. And the key thing is, the owner can ask for their property back at any time for any reason. It's a get out on demand kind of. And this idea was put to the test in this absolutely wild case where one squatter actually let another squatter live in their little makeshift house. When the first person wanted it back, the second refused to leave. The court actually sided with the original squatter, calling it a precarium. And their reasoning was fascinating. They said, look, even if nobody here legally owns this land, we have to decide who has the better right to be there, just to prevent total mayhem and lawlessness. Okay, so this brings us to a really crucial point for anyone who borrows anything. Generally speaking, if something gets lost or destroyed by a total accident that wasn't your fault, a tree falls on the car you borrowed, you're usually not liable. It was a freak accident. But, and this is a huge but, there are 5 major exceptions to that rule.
You are on the hook for accidental loss if you break the deal. Like if you use the item for something you weren't supposed to. You borrow a car to get groceries and instead you take it on a 4-state road trip, or if you just keep it way longer than you agreed. But the last one is the real shocker. If a disaster strikes, like a fire, and you have a choice between saving your own stuff or the thing you borrowed, you are legally required to save the borrowed item first. If you grab your own TV and let your friend's laptop burn, guess what? You're buying them a new laptop.
So that leaves us with one final thought to carry with us. From watching a pet to borrowing 20 bucks, we are making these legal agreements all the time, probably without even realizing it. And knowing these hidden rules, understanding the difference between a loan for use and a simple loan, it totally changes how you look at these everyday acts of trust. So the next time you lend your car or borrow some cash, just ask yourself, what kind of agreement am I really making here?